Thanks for the kind introduction. My name is Mayank. My presentation talk could look like a continuation to what Deepshri just talked about. What a great storyteller. I'm not sure whether it was planned or put it in this way, but the earlier talk could look like a premise to what I'm gonna talk about. Before that, just a quick pulse check in the room. How many of us here are marketeers or in the growth team? Just with a show of hands. All right. How many of us are here from product, consumer experience? All right. Pretty much a mix of both. I'm assuming the remaining are also part of operational or something else on the business side. All right. So let me start the presentation with another quick question. Can any one of you guess what this product is? Or what does this remind you of? Any try? You wanna take a guess? iPod, okay. It definitely looks like an iPod. It's actually the Microsoft's version of music player called Zune, which is essentially a contemporary of iPod. It was launched in 2006, couple of years after iPod was launched. But guess what? No one of us remembered this product. As a matter of fact, this product was almost as good, if not better, arguably better, in terms of UI UX, in terms of the features that this product was offering, but it did not land in front of the user base. Why? Because the best product doesn't always win. The best known product does. And unfortunately, Microsoft couldn't, their marketing was not as compelling, the content was not as compelling, because of which it did not land well in comparison with the iconic ads that Apple had, right? I'll give you another example, probably a little more popular. In blind taste tests done on Pepsi and versus Coke, most of the users, most of the people who tasted it found Pepsi to be better than Coke. But we all know that Coke is more popular, has much better sales and distribution. How did they do it? With a compelling story, a better and unique proposition, which landed in front of their user base, and definitely a distribution, a global distribution of their own. And hence, the key lesson that I wanted to call out over here is just making the best product isn't the end game. We also need to make sure that that best product also becomes the known product, and that's where the marketeers and the growth folks come into the picture. A corollary to that, how do we sell the great products? How do we create that marketing and positioning? They need distribution, positioning, and a great storytelling. And guess what? In the era of AI, all of that, distribution, positioning, and storytelling needs to be unique and personalized. My fellow colleague just talked about in the entire overload of content in this age, and hence making your positioning, your storytelling needs to be unique and refreshing, as well as personalized, that suits my particular need. And it is possible now with the age of AI and with the AI era. Well, I'll quickly skip the introduction in the interest of time. In the next 10 minutes, I'll basically be talking about few case studies and few use cases where we have used AI to bolster the growth of user base, both at Pocket FM and also a couple of other examples from the industry. And I'm hoping that after this talk, you'll have few use cases that you can think of within your own company, within your own product space, where you can use AI to then grow your user base and grow your audience. If not that, at least I'm sure you'll be inspired from these use cases on how to use AI. But before that, why AI and why AI now? We all know that the cost of acquisition is rising rapidly. The math is simple. The user, the audience who are there on internet is not growing to the extent with which the marketing people are putting monies and dollars on digital marketing. So the math is simple, that there are a lot of competitors eyeing for the same user mind share, and because of that, the overall cost of acquisition is rising. Just in the last 2 years, just throwing a stat over here, but essentially in e-commerce industry alone, the CAC actually increased by 40% in the last 2 years, which basically mean you need to be more efficient in your overall positioning in content distribution in order to reduce your cost of acquisition and get the highest buck for your money. Why AI? AI helps you reduce creative fatigue and unlocks personalization at scale. I'm assuming most of you live in Singapore only. And if you're not using YouTube subscription program, you would probably have come across someone through one of those YouTube ads who try to sell stock market, who is always bullish about how stock market is rising, this is the time to invest, this is your time to get rich and rich now. Trust me, because of that person, I ended up subscribing to YouTube because I was just done with that person selling me investing time and again. The same guy with the same pitch, talking about the same thing again and again. It doesn't land beyond a point and it leads to annoyance. And this is where you can use AI to customize your content generation. You can create the novelty factor which resonates better with your user base and which could also be much more personalized in a manner such that something which is appealing to, let's say, me, I get to see a different advertisement, someone else has an appeal to something else, the other person gets to see something else. Why now? Because if not now, then when? There are a lot of explosion of generative models across the board for all different use cases, whether it is related to content, text generation, image generation, video generation. It has never been cheaper and faster and more accurate, and it's just going to become even cheaper, faster, and more accurate in the future. So you're not really competing, as the famous saying goes, you're not really competing with AI, you're actually competing with someone else who is using AI for their benefit. So let me just walk through a couple of examples and use cases that we're using at Pocket FM to generate content. Just a quick recap about Pocket FM. If you're not familiar about the company, you could think of us as Netflix for audio. So think about if you want to listen to Game of Thrones, but not watch because of, hey, again, content fatigue. That's where Pocket FM comes into the picture. We are much more than that, but for this particular talk, I think that should be enough. Oops. All right. AI-generated thumbnails and cover images. Every single month, we launch around 30,000 to 50,000 new series onto the platform across the globe. Europe, US, India. We're not yet there in Southeast Asia, but hopefully in the future very soon. And every single thumbnail or cover image of the series, 90% of them now are AI generated in this fashion. I'll quickly talk about how we do that as well. Just a little bit science behind this magic. We use a pre-trained LLM model to basically, we put the entire story content onto the model, the first 1 hour of the story, and we automatically get the description, the best suited description for that particular story. That's the first step, description generation. The second is image prompt generator. Before we actually prompt a model to finally generate the image, we use another AI model to generate the prompt for the same. And for this, we use, again, the description which was generated earlier, along with the title of the story, and few custom predefined prompts, which is more suited for our platform, that, hey, you know what, the image should look like, should have a cinematic flavor to it. let's say if the language of the story is English and it's catering to the European audience, the image or the character should look more Caucasian in that nature. The same thumbnail image for the same story in the US could look very different. Or probably in Singapore could look very different. It could have a different set of characters, which has a much better resemblance to the audience it is catering to. So that is where we generate the image prompt. And the final step then is image generation. The prompt is fed into one of these image generation model called Leonardo to return 3 images which the writers can pick. And they can also tweak the prompt on their own. If they don't like the image that they see, they can tweak that, hey, you know what, instead of, let's say, Big Ben in the background, let's have Marina Bay Sands. And then accordingly, the new entire image gets generated. So that's AI-generated thumbnail cover images for you. At Pocket FM, we spend millions of dollars every month in marketing, primarily through performance marketing. And pretty much every buck goes to California to Meta, to Google and whatnot. But because we are spending millions of dollars every single month, it becomes equally important for us to make it super efficient, to appeal to the right audience, and to remove that fatigue of creative. So what we generally do is, any of the story that we have, we pick up the story, we create a bunch of different promos, and then we feed those different promos. When I say promo, it's advertisement. We feed different promos and advertisement to Meta, and all of them automatically gets targeted to different audience of their own. Now, in order to do so at scale, we use generative AI. Now, I'll quickly play this video. I'm not sure if this will get played. All right, there was a video. Is this possible to click on? Let's see if it works. It's not working? All right, no worries. So in Jest, the video essentially was one of the AI promo completely built from scratch, which is then used to just grow the audience in a much more personalized way. I'll quickly talk about at least the science behind how we generate these promos. All right. How do we generate this entire promo? We take one of the show, let's say, again, Game of Thrones. We create the entire episodic summary of the entire show into the content using a fine-tuned LLM model, highlighting key events, cliffhangers, and things which would be important for, let's say, a promo lead to generate promo ad, promo script on their own. And then we use the summary of the entire show to create a knowledge base and also add all the learnings, the past learnings of different promos that were created about this show in the past, what worked, what did not work, so that the model can learn even better, learn faster, along with certain key elements around how the promo should look like. So let's say one of the prompts could be that, can we have the entire promo look like a Disney movie, right? And the entire promo then gets generated similar to how Disney movie would look like. Once this entire knowledge base gets created, again, there's another model that we use, which is trained on all the past promos that we have created within the company for the last 2 years. And in order to create this script, which is using this knowledge base, along with creative inputs by promo writers. Now, this part is very important. We do not completely rely on the final output provided by the model, at least at this point in time. There is definitely some creative angle that come into play where our promo writers, in-house writers, QC the entire promo script generated and make changes and make improvements on top of the output generated by the model. Oops. And then finally, we use either VO3 to generate the entire video, or use, let's say, Leonardo to generate still images of the entire promo script, club it together, stitch it together, and voila, that's where your entire promo video gets generated. Let me also now talk about another use case of AI, which we can use to grow our user base. That's personalization. Now, as important as it is to acquire your users and acquire the right user at a cheaper cost, it's also equally important to make sure that the first onboarding experience of the user is superb, so that the user actually retains on the platform, makes a transaction, and then stay there for a very long duration in order to increase the LTV. And that's where we are using personalization. The first example over here is the cold start problem. Now, the moment a user comes onto the platform, the question that we have is, what kind of show do we showcase to the user? What kind of thumbnails do we showcase to the user? And that is where we present a curated gender genre specific shows that reflect what brought users onto the platform in the first place. So for instance, let's say if a user came onto the platform by looking at one of the thriller videos or thriller promos, the content that we showcase onto the platform is related to thriller, horror, or some similar content around it. If someone comes looking at, let's say, a vampire show, the first couple of shows or couple of rows that we showcase to the user relate to, let's say, vampire or male drama and something similar to that. And we don't really stop over there. Even within modules, let's say if a module is of new arrivals, which has all the new shows curated for the user base, we use a bunch of information and parameters of the users based on their past history of consumption on the platform, their information and metadata, including, let's say, what is the gender, what is the genre affinity that they have with a particular kind of story. We prioritize the shows based on that. And just with this single experiment, we saw a 60% improvement in click-through rate on the thumbnails and almost about 8% improvement in the total playtime of those users. So very small experiment, but significant impact on the business and retention of the user. Now, let me also talk a couple of other examples from other industries. Similar example from Netflix in the same content space, content industry. Netflix aims to offer you the perfect title at the right moment, which is suited to your taste and your needs. Now, how do they do it? They do it in different ways, but let me cover a couple of the examples. Now, the same show, Good Will Hunting, two different people could see two different thumbnail altogether because of their inherent preferences and needs. So for instance, if you're into romantic comedies, Netflix uses the top right movie art based on your past consumption history to merchandise Good Will Hunting in that particular manner. But now if, let's say, you are into famous comedians, your personalized movie art features Robin Williams. Now, as you can imagine, because of this personalization, the click-through rate or your perception about that movie will improve, and that's a win-win situation for both, for Netflix as well as for the user. In fact, their entire home feed is personalized to a large degree. Every single row name that you see on Netflix is very varied and inconsistent. Even for the same household, let's say if you're a couple or if you have a partner, just the next time you go home right now, try to switch to your, let's say, partner's account and compare the row names that you get to see from your partner's feed. It would be vastly different, assuming that the content consumption pattern is also quite different. I would assume it to be different, or else if the same set of people in the same home, it's going to be conflicting. So that's the level of personalization they do. In fact, the module positioning of the users also vary a lot. I'll give you a quick example. Let's say if a user, if let's say you are more prone to, you have a very high affinity of watching Netflix at this point in time, and you're about to complete your existing series that you were watching, there is a high likelihood that Netflix will deprioritize the continue listening or continue watching row name a little bit. Why? Because they want you to discover new shows and new other shows or other movies, so that you can start watching something else while you're just about to complete your current series. So they have your data, they try to personalize in that particular manner. In fact, the entire interface changes depending on when you're watching Netflix, whether you're watching on your phone or on your desktop, whether you're watching during the day or at night. The entire interface related to how each series is showcased to you is personalized. We talked about 2 use cases of AI that could be used in both growing your user base and to some degree making sure that they retain onto the platform. The first one is around content generation. The second one is around personalization. The third one, essentially, that one last example that I would talk about is essentially a mixture of both. Personalized content generation. And this is my favorite. This is from Duolingo. I kid you not, I was actually sitting in a cafe earlier this week, just having my coffee and doing some deep work. And I got a push notification for Duolingo saying, you know what goes well with coffee? Some Japanese language and sessions. I'm not sure how did they do it, but it was damn super personalized. Maybe they know that pretty much everyone have coffee around the same time. It could be a mere coincidence, but it worked pretty well. How do they do it? They use GenAI along with multi-armed bandit algorithm. Just to dumb it down, what multi-armed bandit algorithm generally means is nothing but casino, where the entire algorithm is optimizing for either you should sit on the same casino machine that you were just a slot machine that you were on, or do you want to try different other slot machines and see if the other slot machines gives you a better result. And it keeps on doing the same thing again and again to optimize for the best return for you. So that's, in a sense, multi-armed bandit algorithm. What they do over here is they craft notifications with different personality, with a novelty factor. So it's very less likely that you will see the same notification in a short span of time again and again. That basically allows them to, it deters the users to actually turn off their notification completely. And the final is conditional eligibility. This basically means the same notification, when should it go to a particular user and at what time of the day, and what kind of notification should be showcased to this user, also gets dependent from the entire algorithm. And one thing that every app struggles with, which is push fatigue, Duolingo is able to not just avoid that push fatigue, but also generate growth out of it. They're able to boost their retention because of this entire novelty factor. Along with that, they are getting free distribution. Now think about it, people are sharing these notifications as meme. People like me are talking about Duolingo and notification in summits like this. It's a win-win situation for them, and that's AI-powered growth at its best, personalized, scalable, and viral. So where do you start? Before I start this slide, just a quick caveat. to make sure that my entire talk lands in the right place. By no means I mean to convey the message that AI is going to replace the entire creative energy that lies in the team, in the marketing team or the growth team. Think of AI as a force multiplier and not a silver bullet, which basically mean before even using AI, we need to do our groundwork properly, which basically mean A, we definitely need to build a solid product to sell. B, we need to understand our user and target audience to which we want to market the product. C, build the strategy, the right strategy to figure out how your entire brand positioning, your storytelling would look like, and then use AI to actually personalize and create that novelty factor to reach to a much bigger audience in a much faster way and a much cheaper way. I'll talk about the two phases. Let's start with the experiment phase. Let's start small. How can you do? You can pick up a bunch of experiments similar to what I talked about. You can do some basic A/B testing with few AI-generated creatives. See if that seems better than what, let's say, the other creative folks within the team are putting up. Or you can pretty much combine these two to make sure that the end outcome is much better than what it used to be. You can experiment with few pre-trained public models. There are a bunch of these available. You can figure out what suits the best for your needs. And you can run these small-scale personalization experiments such as with push notification, ad copy, landing pages, and whatnot. The second phase essentially is scaling phase. Once you have started small, once you have learned how it works and how you can use this, once you have built the trust, and that's super important, and when you're ready to scale, that is when you can start thinking about building repeatable systems around running the entire campaigns, marketing campaigns, or for whatever use cases you're using AI for. One thing to also keep a note on is to centralize all these learnings. You should think about AI as an organism which is thriving within your organization, and you can do this by feeding in more data, what is working, what is not working, by using reinforcement learning or by using the multi-armed bandit algorithms to further optimize your campaigns, the budget allocation that the team is doing in real time. All right, that's pretty much from my end. Leaving this floor with the last question, what's the one experiment you will try next week? I hope it gave you some inspiration, if not a direct, clear understanding about how to use AI in growing user base and also to retaining them. That's it from my end. Thank you very much, and thank you for being a nice listener base. Thank you.